Hey guys, Horror Man back for another review. So today we're going to take a look at the Creepshow TV series, The Creep figure. Now this is made by NECA Toys and it's part of their ongoing line of 7-inch scale horror figures. So taking a look at the packaging here, you do have that really cool Creepshow logo on the front and it just says Tales of Suspense and Horror. And then at the very top it says Strange, Eerie, Terrifying. On the left you get a cool little logo, and on the right it says 10 cents. So it's very similar to what a comic book would look like. Over to the back, the top of the box is pretty much the same as the front, but you do get a really cool picture of the Creep from the new TV show. And then there's also a bit of a read-up just of Creepshow in general. And on the bottom it just kind of gives you a quick description of the accessories that are included. Over to the side of the box you do get the Creepshow logo, also another cool picture of the Creep himself in that little square, and it does look like the Creep from the actual TV show. Over to the bottom you really just get some credits for NECA, so just the UPC, some credits, copyright, stuff like that. Over to the top you just get the logo again. So interesting enough, there's no pictures of the actual figure on the box. Alright, so let's go ahead and get this out of the box and have a closer look. Alright, so here's the Creep outside of the packaging. And he looks pretty cool, man. I'm already really liking this robe. I just got to kind of handle it just for a couple seconds and I could already tell it's really well made. So we'll go over the robe and show you the articulation underneath. We'll go over the accessories as well as some comparisons with other NECA figures and other figure lines. But before we get to all of that, I just want to show you one of the things that's included, and I always love to show these because I tend to use them with my pictures, and I know other people do too. So you do get this really cool tree background, which is really neat, and it just kind of has that creepy, classic look to it. Alright, so taking a look at the head sculpt here, there is just so much details in this sculpt. It's really nice looking. Now, you do have the more fabric hair, which is a really nice touch, and then of course you have the fabric hood. So it is a bit of a mixture of elements that you typically see in those retro figures. Now, just looking at the hood itself first, what I really like about this is it does have that kind of tail at the end, I guess you could say. It's kind of something you see in the Scream mask, not quite as long, but I really do like that. I think that really adds to the overall look. But the hood itself does have a wire all in it, so this part here has a wire, and that should allow you to get some nice posability out of it. And then the back of it, where that tail is, it has that wire as well. You can actually bend that little tail in the back of the hood, so that's pretty nice. So I'll go ahead and take this hood down and have a closer look at the head. Alright, so once you put the hood back, you could definitely see the hair showing much more. And he does have fairly long hair, you could see, and it has a bit of a wave in it, which looks really good. I definitely like that they use more fabric hair. Looks much more realistic. Now I will say that it wouldn't hurt to add, maybe just put a little bit of water on your hands and dry them almost all the way, and just kind of smooth the hair down just a little bit. You can even wet this hair and make it look even crazier. But I do like the overall look of it. Now while the hair does look really good from the front, from the side and the back it's not quite as good. You can see they kind of went heavy with I guess gluing down the hair to the top of the head. So you can see that's a bit matted looking, but it kind of fits with the fact that he has that hood on all the time. So it doesn't look horrible, it's just worth noting. The other thing worth noting is there's really no hair on the back of his head at all. So you really only get the hair on the sides, the top onto the side, and then just no hair in the back. So I'm not exactly sure how accurate it is. They might have just done that just because the hood's on him and you just don't see the back of his head. And just a quick shot of the back of his head. Again, really nice sculpting details. The paint looks fantastic, but again, there's no hair on the back of his head, which, I don't know, it's kind of weird. I do wish he had hair on the back, but again, I don't know how accurate that is to the show. Overall, though, I really do like the face. It's a fantastic sculpt, very creepy. The eye placement looks really good. I definitely love the details in the mouth and the teeth. So overall, man, I mean, this is a really, really nice head sculpt. And again, once you put this hood up, my complaints about the hair or whatever really don't matter. And this is definitely the way I'm going to display the figure. And it just looks awesome. And I really do love the posability with that wire in this hood. Like I said, this whole rim here, the back of it, you could really pose it. Now, before we get too much into the details and paint and the actual figure, I do want to show you this robe. So looking at it, it's very, very similar to that Splinter robe from the 1990 Turtles. So if you have that figure, you kind of might know what to expect with this figure. It's got that really nice weathering on it. You can see it's tattered on the arms, like the edge of the sleeve, and then at the bottom of the actual robe, so it looks really, really nice. And then, of course, like I said, there is wiring in the hood itself. Now, you do have these little pieces here, which, again, are very similar to the Splinter. Those pieces are kind of weird to me. They seem too new, like he just put that on, but then the actual robe itself is very, very tattered. So I'm not 100% sure if I like those or not. But like I said, the robe itself looks really good. I definitely like all the tattered, like just all the different fraying on the actual robe, just the different paint details and holes and everything kind of added to it. The tail, the hood. I think they just really, really did a nice job overall. So as much as I want to take this robe off, it's really, really hard to actually get it off without tearing it or messing it up. So unfortunately, I'm only going to take it off partly to kind of show you all the details and stuff underneath the robe, because it is really, really detailed. So taking a look at the lower half, you can see the rib cage here looks really, really good. You can see just all the different disgusting rotting away parts of his body. You got all the ribs and you got his spine coming through here. Just really, really nice. Alright, so going over the articulation, we'll go ahead and start with the head sculpt. Again, the hood does have some articulation in there with the wire going around the hood itself and into the tail and the back, so that's pretty cool. Now just taking the hood down, you can rotate, no issues. You can go all the way around if you wish. He can look up really good. He can look down really good, so happy with that. You can get some expression here, so if you want to angle the head and adjust that hair a bit, no problem. So, overall, really nice articulation in the head sculpt and in the hood itself. And he does have some decent range up top as well. It is a little hard to see the joints, so you may want to pull the sleeves up before you start bending stuff around. I can do almost, actually you can do a pretty good T-pose, so that's cool. You can angle his body a little bit. He can crunch down a little bit, so that's good. The arms can go all the way down. They can go pretty much all the way up. So you got some nice back and forward motion there. You just have the single joint at the elbow, but it does go pretty far. And then he can twist the wrist around pretty good. So no issues with that. So pretty good articulation up top. And looking at the articulation, like the torso and the lower part of the body, you can see you do get a decent, I guess not an ab crunch, but like an upper torso crunch. And then the legs can go pretty far out to the side. The only problem I'm having is if you pop the leg out, which mine did when I tried the articulation, it's hard to get it back underneath of that like little flesh part. So he can go that far out with his leg. And then you got single joint articulation at the knee. He can go up and down with the foot, but there really isn't much rock. There's a tiny bit. So decent amount of articulation overall. So you do get a decent amount of accessories with the Creep. First thing to start with is the interchangeable hand. You do get a left interchangeable hand for the Creep, and it basically is for holding the lantern. And of course, I'm sure you could still hold the lantern in that relaxed right hand, but you do have a specific left hand for holding it. And then you also, of course, get the lantern, which looks really nice. It kind of has like that aged look to it. The glass is kind of yellowed. And I'm not sure if that's supposed to kind of give the look that it kind of looks like it's glowing, or if it's just like an aged look to it. But it does look pretty cool. Now, unfortunately, it does not light up, so you will not have any light effect in that. And then you also get this really cool Creepshow comic book. And I'll show you a little bit closer look at that in a second. But it is a cool little paper accessory, a very needed accessory in my opinion. But it is more of the current Creepshow comic book, and it will reflect like the stories from the new series. And then finally you get this really cool skull with the lower jaw missing, and it's done really well. I definitely like the look of this, just awesome looking skull. So you can see some really nice details in there. And just taking a look at the front of the cover for the comic, you can see it's very reminiscent of the packaging of the NECA box. But this one, of course, you have that really cool picture of the Creep. And then once you open up the book, you can kind of see that it is based on the story The Finger, and you can kind of see some of the different panels from that actual story, and I think that's really nicely done. And then finally onto the back of the comic. Just like any good comic book series, you of course have the back issues that you can order right on the back conveniently. So just really cool details overall in this very small piece. And here's the Creep holding the skull and the lantern, and again you do want to interchange that left hand to hold that lantern. And it's worth noting that the fingers are like a very flexible, almost like a rubbery material. So when you go to put the hand around the lantern, just flex out the fingers and it goes right in. Don't try to force it without opening that hand. And finally, here he is holding the Creepshow comic book. Alright, so for the first comparison, here he is next to the Part 3 Jason with the custom freak hockey mask, and then the Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 Freddy Krueger. And these are both made by NECA as well. And you can see the scale is really nice, so the Creep is definitely in that 7-inch scale. And man, how cool would it be to see a Creepshow episode with Jason, Freddy, or some of the old horror icons? I mean, that is a crossover that definitely needs to happen. And here he is with Frank the Bunny from Donnie Darko, and then my vampire Raphael, the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Raphael. And again, you could definitely see the scale is very good. And here he is next to a couple smaller scale figures. So you have the Black Widow on the Jessica Jones body from Marvel Legends, and then you have the Nosferatu from Mezco, and that's part of the 112 Collective line. Here he is with the Skeletor from the Masters Universe Filmation cartoon, and then you have the Mumra from the Thundercats, also the cartoon, the classic 80s cartoon. And even though these are technically 6-inch figures, they actually look fairly decent next to the Creep. And it's worth noting they are going to make a cartoon version of the Creep very soon for the Toonie Terror line, so that actually might fit in really good with these. Here he is next to the Creepshow pop figure made by Funko. And for the final comparison, here he is next to a couple retro NECA Toys figures. So you have the skeleton costume kid from the Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, and then you have the Megadeth Vic Rattlehead figure. And then you can see they're just a little bit too big to scale with your Creep. Alright, so that's my review of the NECA Toys The Creep from Creepshow. And overall, I think it's a really solid entry for the 7-inch scale action figure line. It's definitely a bit of a deluxe figure in terms of having the cloth goods and the more realistic hair. And I really like that approach to the 7-inch scale figure line. I really do like the sculpt here, especially in that head sculpt. And then the accessories are really detailed. These are some of the most detailed accessories I've seen on these NECA figures. Like the skull, just like the printing on the Creepshow comic, really nice. And this hood is definitely a better fabric, or at least it's done better, I think, than the Splinter robe. The only thing I do wish is instead of doing the stitching all the way down the front, I kind of wish they did like a Velcro, at least if not in the front, in the back, just so we could take that robe off. Because as it is, it's really hard to get that robe off without putting unwanted tears or holes in it. And the only other really complaints I have about the figure is I really don't care for like these little ribbon pieces that are on the robe itself. I don't really see that adding that much to the character, and I doubt this was that authentic because it just doesn't look tattered enough. It kind of has that just like somebody cut a ribbon and put it around his neck. It just doesn't look that great. And I definitely wish the lamp would have had a light in it. I think that really adds, especially if you're like me and you like to do a lot of different action figure photos. So, I do wish it had that. And even adding a glow in the dark effect to it would have been really cool to kind of give it that realistic lamp feel. The only other issue I have is feet aren't flat on the ground or on the floor. They just can't go completely flat. So that's one of the issues I have. And once you start putting like the skull and the lantern in his hands, he tends to get a little like front heavy, so he kind of falls forward. So it's definitely worth noting. So there are little issues here and there, but nothing that would deter me away from buying the figure. And I will say, finding this Creepshow figure in store was no easy task. Online it sold out pretty fast through NECA, and I definitely wish I would have acted on that. It really is an awesome figure. I mean, this is a long-time favorite mascot, I guess you could say, of horror. He's right up there with the Crypt Keeper, which unfortunately we'll probably never get in figure form. Unfortunately, the rights are so, messed up with that. So the Creepshow is definitely a really cool figure to have to fit in your horror collection. So leave a comment or question if you have one. Like the video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you haven't done it already. And until next time, guys, see ya.